Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield, talking to some of the country's biggest stars and some of my favourite people. And we've got one for you today. Tom Allen, how are you?
Well, thank you for describing me as that. I'm well, thank you. I'm very well. I'm having a lovely time on my tour.
You're very good. I mean, you've sort of got the charm of Graham Norton and the facial hair of Vanessa Feltz. It's nice.
I couldn't possibly comment. But thank you. Thank you.
What a lovely show. I've just sat through nearly 2 hours of you doing what you do. And it's hard to explain without seeing any comedian live. But you've got incredible warmth. I mean, people love you the second you walk out. And you can't buy that.
Oh, well... I'm very flattered you think that. Oh, thank you. I mean, essentially, I'm just very lonely and desperate to have any kind of human interaction. So I'm glad
you 2 hours of people a day.
Yeah. I'm glad it manifests in something. I do enjoy talking to people, and I love that about touring, that you get to go to places you wouldn't necessarily go to if you didn't have a reason to go. And I always love interacting, meeting people, finding out about their ways, and I think that's. Comedy, I think, is about bringing people together. It sounds a bit cheesy, perhaps, but it is about, like, you know, we're all together in the room having a fun time, and that's what it's all about. It doesn't matter if there's lots of people or there's, like, if it's a small gig in some room above a pub, you know, it's always, comedy is about just all coming together having a laugh.
I feel your pain as well. I mean, the show basically is about you being an outcast. I mean, you're gay and I'm ginger. It's the same thing, really.
It's basically the same, you know. It's basically the same.
Couldn't be more depressing. Which is worse, do you think, on a scale of 1 to 10?
I don't think either are worse. Gay is fine now. Gay is fine. I mean, it's fine. It's fine for a lot of people. Ginger, I think, is celebrated. But again, maybe this is the gays celebrate it. That's what's great about being gay. We are, as a people, very good at taking what the rest of society goes, oh, we don't like that, and we go, well, let's fetishize that. So gingers, I think, are a whole, like, thing that people like.
You know what they say, a rusty roof equals a damp basement, and people like that.
I've never heard that before, but okay, yeah.
It's my profile name on several websites.
On Grindr. Yeah, I think a bit like bear culture as well. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Like, the bears are, like, you know, traditionally, like, not traditionally, but, like, in some ways people go, oh, like, bigger guys, in a lot of mainstream society, they're like, oh, overweight guys with too much hair. But the gays go, great, I love a chunky guy with loads of hair. When suddenly, like, everything's flipped on its head. That's what we do.
There's any possibility these days.
That's what my people do.
What I love about you do this show, which resonates with me. I mean, I'm a couple of years older than you, but you're very clever at picking out very specific minutiae that we all immediately go, oh God, I was there, whether it's the buffet or whether it's just the little things in life. I mean, we grew up at the same time. It was an interesting time because we sort of beat the millennials. So we didn't have the mobile phones at school, but we sort of grew up with it after that. And you talk about the dating. I mean, you're right. It is almost impossible to meet anybody unless it's online.
Yeah, that, I mean, for me, that was like that's sort of the bit when I sort of talk about, like, the world. Not that I dwell on that very long, but yeah, I think it is quite an interesting time we live in. Like, there's lots of things that have never happened before, and I think, like, people are just sort of learning about, how do I deal with this? How do I get on with it? How do I do that? But I try and observe it in a way that you go, well, everybody has experienced these things, and hopefully it makes it kind of. I just sort of offer, like, a slightly skewed angle on stuff. I sort of do it like I'm sort of stood up.
It's interesting as well that you came from an acting background. I wonder whether you're acting being a comedian or this is really you and you've forgotten how to be an actor.
Oh, well, I suppose I've always really liked performing, and I think as a kid I always thought I wanted to be an actor, but it turned out I was just gay, and I was looking for, like, an outlet, and I was looking for a way
You're acting being human.
I was just sort of, at that time I was just sort of acting like, oh, I don't know if this is me. I think I like sort of showing off, and I think acting at the time felt like it was the only way to meet sort of outlandish, eccentric people, and I liked that. And I like the way it's sort of associated with storytelling and stuff. I always enjoyed all of that. So, and at that time, like, stand-up, there weren't that many stand-ups that I could relate to. It wasn't such a thing as it is now. Right. And there were, the stand-ups we were in were really blokey, and they told jokes, or they were sort of angry, or it was all quite sort of blokey, and it was in raucous environments. And the only person I really liked as a stand-up during that time was Victoria Wood when I was growing up. And I think because she just represented this alternative voice, this way of observing the world, but was through this, I don't know, from this outsider perspective, which I really related to, and I think a lot of people did. And then sometimes more people have sort of got into comedy, I guess, brought up on people like Victoria Wood and French and Saunders, and just sort of it brought about a generation now which I think is much more diverse and is better for it.
Isn't it funny how to be a great comedian you have to be an outsider? I can't think of one example that's amazing that isn't.
Yeah, well, because nobody wants to watch a comedian go like, do you know what? Everything in my life's absolutely fine.
I'm delicious. Look at me.
I am so great. I'm so like everything's no complaints.
The world's rosy. It'd be a very short show, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we're like, I don't like this person at all. So people want to share in the pain of the people they're watching. I think a bit, not in a negative way, but I suppose you just want to see someone going like, hey, sometimes life's tough, but I'm getting through the day, I'm still smiling, and people go, oh, you can still smile, and I think that's what people like. But maybe I get a bit self-aggrandizing. I mean, it's hard to imagine that, isn't it?
Well, you could be better. I wonder as well whether you love the old comedians too. I mean, there's a charm about your show which a lot of them had. I mean, just yesterday we lost Ken Dodd.
Indeed, yes. Yeah, so sad. And I love watching the tribute to him. When I got in from the gig I was doing last night, and there was a tribute just showing some of his interviews and stuff, and just such a delightful energy. That's what I think is so amazing about a lot of that era, but particularly Ken Dodd. I think that just relentless, like, talk about a thing, talk about another thing, talk about another thing. And actually, when you think like back then, especially, must have felt like, what is this? Would be deemed very alternative now. I think if Ken Dodd was suddenly on the scene for the first time, people would be like, he's very quirky, just sort of comes up with these ideas and these random viewpoints. It's sort of. He's amazing, man.
I wonder if that's one of the reasons he lasted. I mean, he used to play next door at Boxton, that big house there. And again, there's a campery about him. I mean, who else could come on in a hairy fairy coat and have Diddy Man? I mean, there is a sort of nod to that. And he loved the history of comedy, and I sense you do too.
Yeah, very much. I suppose I always really liked Kenneth Williams, although he wasn't a comedian, but told stories. And I suppose like that, and Frankie Howard, and Bob Hope, even as a child. I like that sort of patter. I like that. I think there's a certain rhythm to it, and I like to think there's a metronome going on in my mind when I'm doing a show or when I'm writing jokes. You try and have it so that it feels like it's an up-tempo. It feels like that sort of thing I've kind of got from older comics, I think.
It's interesting as well, when you came out, I said that, you'd got a beautiful rhythm to the show, but there's that pause, isn't there, that you do where you do a look that way or the other way. Again, harking back to an older time of comedy when they used that time to breathe to give the audience a chance to laugh and think.
Yes, I suppose it is a little bit old-fashioned like that, or a bit, not old-fashioned, hopefully, but a bit inspired by that era, yeah. I think because I always enjoy things like euphemisms and double entendres and just sort of actually having those moments when people think, because I think it just allows people to play it out in their head, or they do a bit of work themselves and they like that.
You do like an innuendo, let's admit it.
I do. I love a big one.
If there are any innuendos in the interview, I will have to whip them out because the producers won't like
I'm sure I've got one in me somewhere.
Is it fun being you? I mean, life on the road is tough. I mean, today I know you've had somewhat of a tortuous day. You turn up to pick up the car and they hand you a HGV. It's not easy, is it?
It's never happened before, but I hire cars for the tour. And I like driving, because I've recently passed my driving test, so I'm really enjoying driving myself. And I kind of find it quite therapeutic at times, although stressful. But today I turned up and they'd run out of cars. So they were like, well, we've got a van. So I had to drive her in a van from London. Firstly, it took 5 hours, the drive. Secondly, what am I doing in a van? It doesn't I first don't understand roundabouts, for one thing. What am I doing in a van with no back windows? Go on the motor. I mean, it's very stressful if you've been in the car, indeed the van with me.
How do you see out the rear if you haven't got a mirror?
Talking of innuendos, you use the wing mirrors.
Is that how you did it?
Yes, sir. Yes.
There's that blind spot as well. You've got to be careful when you pull over.
I was very anxious about this on the motorway earlier. I pulled because I'm always very timid about moving lanes. Some drivers very blasé about it turns out, I found. Today I moved across, but I thought, oh my God, and then I was like, where did that car come from? There was a car, and nearly just totally, oh my God, it doesn't bear thinking about. But yeah.
What I love the most about your show was your turn of phrase. I mean, you have a beautiful vocabulary that you use brilliantly. Did you always have that?
For me, it's just another thing to enjoy, I suppose, as part of our human experience, really. I suppose that we have all these words, we have all these ways of using language, and I find it really exciting, and I find it really exciting the way that slang emerges, for example, or the way that different forms of speaking come together, and actually we can all understand each other. Often it's the way we read so much in people's faces or the tone or whatever. But I like language, and I think when I was at school I always felt a bit embarrassed, and I talk about it in the show of like feeling like, oh no, I'm nothing, oh no, I don't just want to blend in. And then actually, as you go older, you go, no, why should I be like using just like the boring same words that everyone else uses? Actually, you can sometimes use other ones. It's a rich language we have. We should enjoy it.
It's fun, isn't it? And then selling out venues must be great. I mean, beginning in the business, sort of doing pubs, as you said, can be tough, and paying them to do it. And then suddenly finding that you're making a profit and selling out theatres must be great. You're at that sort of place at the moment where you're about to be one of the big ones. You're doing the sort of 8 out of 10 cats and all of that. I can feel that something big is going to happen.
Oh, well, that is very, very kind of you to say. I've really enjoyed. I've been doing stand-up for about 13 and a half years. 13 years? No, about 13 years now. And I feel like I've learnt a lot from it, and I've done gigs in as many different in as many different environments as I could. And so it's lovely to be doing it, and to be doing it to bigger crowds, and I do feel very humbled and grateful. If this that sounds very like I'm on some sort of Instagram post, #blessed, that people want to come and see it and that hopefully enjoy it. So yeah, I mean, it does. You do always sound a bit. I always feel a bit embarrassed being sincere, but I do feel very grateful, and it's lovely to, like I say, to turn up in some random place like Buxton. Someone said to me once, just enjoy everything in the moment. You know, sometimes things will go great, and then sometimes they'll be harder, but everything is only like life. We're only here for a little while. I think that's the point of comedy, is that we enjoy. You just have a moment together laughing.
And you're on the road forever. It seems you're doing 750,000 gigs this tour. It's incredibly long, but I notice you put those moments in where you can play with the audience. So literally every show is absolutely different. It could never be the same twice.
Yeah, well, I like that because it keeps me on my toes, and hopefully it makes it special for them. I like it to feel like, oh, this is just happening just now.
Something's rumbling under us.
That's my pipe organ that's just started up. I mean,
does it come from underground?
Yeah.
This isn't Blackpool, this is Buxton. Hey, listen, congratulations on everything. I thought it was a tremendous show.
It's been lovely to chat to you as I come off stage.
I hate doing this because this must be a nightmare. Really, you want to be halfway down the M1 now, don't you?
Don't hate yourself. No, I'm staying in Buxton tonight, love. No, I was. Do you know what? I was going to drive to Nottingham, which I think is where you're based, and then I realised Buxton's like in the middle of a mountain range. I can't drive in my rented lorry I've got outside which I've never driven before through. I
just realised, can I have saved the petrol? You were driving to Nottingham. We could have done it there. Save me bothering.
Well, you could have done, but then I actually moved my hotel booking, so I'm staying in Buxton tonight.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, living it up in Buxton before I go to Norwich tomorrow. You know, the neighbouring town of Norwich.
I've got a feeling there's not going to be much going on.
Yeah, actually, I've got to find somewhere to go and have some. I haven't had anything since I had a sandwich at about 12 o'clock.
Well, you go and get something warm inside you, and...
Oh, it'll be a kebab. Is there somewhere open late? Oh, I've got friends in the know. People don't realise Buxton's a 24-hour city.
Who knew?
It's the city that never sleeps. No, Buxton's very nice.
Congratulations on everything. Amazing show, really terrific, and lovely to talk to you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me. No, thanks for having me. Great to see you.